thank you to this week's sponsor, Fitville. These must be the most comfortable shoes I've ever worn. Free your toes. There is so much space in these shoes, and my mom and I are just so in love. Use code NS28 to get 25% off their already low prices. You have to try these shoes to believe them. I'm telling you, they are super comfy. Links below. Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to your horoscope for the week of May 5th, 2024. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. It is a remarkable astrological week, without a doubt. Big moves happening in the sky now. Boy, is this a very special time, and it truly is. Now, a big signature as we begin this week is going to be a heightened awareness around topics that make us feel vulnerable. But it is ultimately insight that provides the healing that we actually need so that we can understand the wisdom behind the vulnerability, how it might be protecting us in some way, and so that we can ultimately transcend it, knowing that whatever protection it is, ultimately we give to ourselves. Now, at the same time, though, we do have a overall quite harmonious week. We have a harmoniously placed new moon, the sun speaking in harmony with Saturn, and other than a brief moment on Wednesday, if you're in the Americas, it's very early in the day. If you are in other parts of the world, it'll be later in the day. But yeah, Wednesday, we do have a very quick moment when the moon meets Uranus that might feel a little bit surprising, but it is ultimately an energy that moves very quickly. But all of that is to say, and I want to say this, next week, right? Next week. And I know I talked about it last week as well. I said, just wait for that week, because next week we start the week with the most surprising day of the year. We end the week with the most luckiest day of the year. And so whether it is that it is a shock, whether it is that it leaves you dumbfounded, whether it is that it feels like out of nowhere it arrived, just know that there's a sense of some tension and maybe even breakthrough that is building as we move towards the very end of the week. And we'll have that sense of breakthrough next week, but very quickly we're going to understand how whatever takes place ultimately is to our very highest great advantage. Now, I spoke about this contrast for every sign in the monthly horoscopes here on my YouTube channel, so you can check that out. And also know that I'll be here to talk about it when we get there next week. Big astrological week I'm looking forward to talking to you guys about. But let's talk about this week, because this week is big as well. It is important, and it starts on Monday when we have Mercury meeting Chiron in the sky. Now, this is an important moment as part of the larger Mercury retrograde season that we're actually still in. Yes, Mercury is direct, but as part of this larger season, we've had these touchstone moments that have taken place going all the way back to the middle of March. That's when Mercury first went into shadow. And as part of that shadow movement has been dancing with Chiron. Well, now here we are, just before Mercury leaves shadow next week. This is the last really important and big celestial connection that Mercury is going to make before we are on brand new territory. When it is that a planet is retrograde, what happens is that it appears from our vantage point to be traveling backwards. This is an optical illusion on our parts, but it appears this way in part because that planet is closer to the Earth than it might otherwise be. And it is when a planet is retrograde that its importance, its symbolism, its energy becomes that much more heightened, but it also becomes that much more karmic. I'm often asked about, what do you think about a retrograde planet, especially in a birth chart? Most people out there have something, some major planet retrograde in their chart. In the case of Mercury, Mercury goes retrograde 3, sometimes 4 times a year. And it goes retrograde for about 3 weeks each time. And of course, as we've discussed before, it isn't just about the retrograde, it's the larger season that I'm always interested in because it is as Mercury begins walking a pathway that he'll eventually walk backwards on, that we start seeing the beginnings of what might be something that we eventually are going to have to look at again in some way. And then the retrograde happens. We see what took place then differently, but we're still not seeing things very clearly. And then Mercury goes direct as it is now. And this is the direct shadow taking place. And this is where we start wrapping things up. And this is where we start to see what has been transpiring differently, more clearly, but also more consequentially. If you are born with any particular planet retrograde, that planet takes on a stronger karmic tendency, but it also gives you an opportunity to own the expression of that energy that much more. It ensures that before that part of you comes forward, you will, all else being equal, take a moment. You'll take a moment to stop and think. And this is why a lot of writers in particular tend to have Mercury retrograde in their chart because writing is a process of getting an idea out, but then going back over it and making sure you like what you said and how you said it. Now, Mercury retrograde brings with it surprise insights, developments, but really reunions. It gives us a chance at another shot, at another opportunity, especially when you take into consideration, based on your sun sign, your rising sign, maybe even your moon sign, you'll likely resonate with an understanding of how this retrograde is stirring up older stuff for you in some way related to the area of life that that retrograde is taking place in. And so in this way, with what it is that needs to come back around or come up out of nowhere, that is the karma. That is the sense of, okay, there's something incomplete here, something that needs to be addressed, but most importantly, something that needs to be understood, something that needs to be learned. That is the only reason some person, place, thing, or situation would come back around. Now, I personally do believe that the universe is abundant, the universe is limitless, and there is always, always another opportunity. There are always additional shots or chances. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to show up identically to what it was before or the exact same person, the exact same situation, but when it is that something is for you, whether you want to understand that a part of your karma, a part of your soul contracts, if it is for you, it will have a way of coming together. And with this Mercury retrograde, soul contracts are especially significant. And that is because the last week of April, that is when Mercury went direct, while hand in hand, just hanging out in the sky with the North Node. And the North Node is a karmic doorway. It is where it is that we fulfill the karmic contracts we promised ourselves that we would in this lifetime. And those can be contracts to other people, and again, related to situations, related to places, but they're also the contracts and the promises we make to ourselves, the karmic soul level promises that are there, the things that we promised ourselves we would do with this lifetime. Whether it is the transiting North Node or the North Node in your own chart, when it is activated, that awareness or circumstances line up so that you get the opportunity to move towards the fulfillment of those promises and of those contracts, because that is ultimately the higher intention of our incarnation. It is to move towards greater love and greater wisdom, and we do that through aligning with certain promises, contracts, and so on. And so, big theme with this Mercury retrograde, now Mercury is direct and is going to meet Chiron in the sky. Recently on an Instagram live, I was talking about some personal realizations I've been having. I sort of woke up one day earlier this week and I realized like it was the end of April. And I thought to myself, wow, it's already the end of April. And before you know it, this year is going to be over. And before you know it, this lifetime is going to be over. And this lifetime, any lifetime, is just way too short. And in the end, when that lifetime is over, what's going to happen to us is the same thing that happens to everybody, which is we become stories. That's it. We become stories. And so I had this realization and I thought to myself, okay, I want to be sure that I'm a really good story, that's for sure. Right? And I wish that for all of us, a story that we really want to have told about us is how it is that we end up continuing on. But having said that, Chiron being the ticket to our immortality is also representative to me of the stories that are told about us. And there is a sense of needing to be aware of, are these stories that are going to make us feel vulnerable or exposed? Are they going to be stories that we can feel proud of, or are we ashamed of? Now, ultimately, once we're not here, it's not even going to matter, I think. But what is going to matter is that we lived in a way that allowed us to align with whatever it is that we want remembered about us. I think a lot of people right now, as we're beginning this week, are having their own realizations along these lines, their own sense of being exposed, of feeling vulnerable, of feeling insecure or unsure. And because Mercury is right there with Chiron, it's likely that we are talking about this as a collective as well, in one way or another. Where is it that we feel misunderstood? Where is it that we feel our efforts and our energies are best spent? And the sense of vulnerability, what is it that's stirring us? Whether it's events in the collective or in our own lives, and what we are becoming aware of within ourselves. It is Mercury now that's going to help us to talk about it, to bring words to it. And in bringing words to those wounds, we participate in the unfolding of our own stories and the stories that ultimately will be whom it is that we will become. Now, shockingly, simultaneously, we have the sun speaking in harmony with Saturn. Yeah, this is happening simultaneously at the exact same time. And wow, I think that this is very insightful because it speaks to the sense of stability that is promised by Saturn and the strength that is found within seeing things from a more adult or more mature perspective, a perspective that is rooted in healthy experience or in some way cultivating our experience so that it becomes wisdom. The sun, of course, has to do with whom it is that we know ourselves to be. It's that core, that center where we feel like we shine especially bright. But this is in the dark of the moon. Remember, the next day we'll have that new moon in the sign of Taurus, just before the moon and its crescent begins to show. It is that period of time that is considered where a lot is happening underneath the surface. A lot is happening very deep within, especially where it comes to our own emotions and striving to make sense of them. If Chiron being activated is anything, it can be an emotional time that a lot of us are going to feel as we begin this week. And yet, there's also a sense that this is the work that we are meant to do now, that is going to be good for us to do, that ultimately will help us to create a greater sense of emotional and practical stability, and that this is personal work whose time has come. Now, a new moon in the sign of Taurus would normally indicate an area of life where there's some new beginning that gives us the opportunity to be patient, to plot a pathway, and to work methodically towards some outcome that we hope to garner, especially in the fullness of time, and especially and likely 6 months later when we get a full moon in that same part of the sky, in this case, when the full moon arrives 6 months from now in the sign of Taurus. But this new moon in Taurus is different. In fact, it's a lot different for a few reasons. And the main reason is that it is activating the Uranus-Jupiter conjunction, which took place not long ago on the 21st of April. And it was that divine meeting in the sky that was rare and special and represented breakthroughs. And even if it felt like, nothing was really happening very dramatic to the moment right away, it's moments like this when the moon gets involved, and the moon representing how we're actually feeling and processing emotion. It is moments like this when we feel the change, we feel the shift. And so this meeting of the moon and Uranus and Jupiter together is significant. That provides a breakthrough. That brings with it the energy and the momentum. That brings with it the excitement of this time as well. However, this new moon is speaking in harmony with Saturn. This is us taking whatever it is that feels like it's just popping up, whether it's personally in terms of our own inspiration or in real ways, surprise events that are taking place now, and quickly using them, tapping into their potential so that we reap some long-term benefit, or at least set ourselves up to see how, if we continue moving in a particular direction and we're willing to start that direction now, we could reap great reward. I see this as energy of opportunity. And in our own life, we may feel a newfound sense of prosperity that feels especially grounding. And we're able to approach financial matters from that place of maturity, helping to fuel a healthy sense of self-respect in the process. Everything that is part of this world is there for a reason, and it is there to be in its right place. But it is us that chooses to keep our focus on the path of greater love and greater wisdom. And that can be harder at some times than others. It's very easy to get caught up in the material realities of life. That's the point of the material reality, after all, so that we know ourselves to be embodied, so that we know ourselves to be present. And yet, at the same time, there is a spiritual urge, a spiritual momentum that is constantly playing out as well. And if we are willing to gently take ourselves away from, no matter how hard it is, from those things that feel so pressing, and instead bring our attention to what spiritual lessons might be playing out in whatever our practical realities might be, we end up doing the most powerful thing we can do to actually shape our practical realities to our advantage. And that is, we're working with the energy behind what has manifested whatever reality we're looking at in our own lives now. By keeping the focus on the spiritual lesson, we're able to then enter a greater flow with life. And when we enter that flow, it's that much easier for the material stuff to fall into place. It's that much easier to have a sense that what you need is provided for, and that you're aware of the abundance and how it's playing out in your life. And a big part of that sense of abundance really comes down to how it is that we are seeing ourselves and how it is that we are seeing our relationship with a kind and loving universe. I mentioned the Instagram live I did earlier this week, and a big focus of that was to create awareness around the fact that this week I do have a new course starting called a Definitive Relationship course, and I'm really looking forward to teaching that. Thank you to all of you who have signed up for that. And as part of this Instagram live and this course, I was talking about Matthew Hussey. Now, Matthew Hussey is somebody I have talked to you about before. He is somebody who I really like his work. He's here on YouTube. He's got millions of people following him. He's like a leading dating coach. And my friend Rosa and I are big fans of his. So let's say that. And he has a new book out, right? So as part of any course that I put together, I like to insert quotes. So I start the class with a quote and I end the class with a quote. And yeah, you're going to see a lot of Matthew Hussey quotes in that class. But having said that, I want to tell you something very interesting in Matthew Hussey's new book that relates to some of the energies we see playing out here. He says that in life we are going to have three very important relationships. One of those is our relationships to other people. The other is our relationship to ourselves. And the third is our relationship to life itself. And to me, when I hear that about our relationship to life itself, that comes down to, are we going to interact with the world and know the world as a place that can be complex, that can be painful, that can be frustrating, but it also simultaneously has immense love, incredible wisdom, and opportunities to magnify and cultivate greater and greater love and wisdom as we move through life. That comes down to our worldview, our orientation to life, and that comes down to faith. Faith that whatever might be happening is ultimately part of how it is that life is supporting us in the midst of whatever we might be going through now. And it is a new moon, like the one we have this week, a new moon that promises breakthroughs and momentum and excitement that can also bring with it a real appreciation of how far it is that we have come and how it is that in a real sense, life itself is supporting us. We become aware of our material realities, but also very quickly, we might just get a glimpse of the spiritual lessons playing out just underneath the physical experience that we're going through right now. And when we do that, we can't help but see how the world, how life, how the universe is absolutely abundant with love and so much more. What I love about this week for us, there's so much here. It's a powerful and meaningful astrological moment. Well, look, it's got to be that new moon energy, but I think that new moon is going to provide us with this little bit of a break, if you will. And what I mean by that is a type of emotional breakthrough. We approach that new moon with a sky that's got a lot going on, especially considering that Mercury is meeting Chiron in the sky, an important dance that has been playing out. But this is really setting the stage for next week when Mercury leaves shadow. This is the last big important connection that Mercury is going to make before he does that brand new pathway walking next week. But for all that, it is this heightened sense of vulnerability that ultimately can lead to a great sense of self-honesty as well. And it is in those moments of being honest with ourselves that we're able to acknowledge that, yeah, sometimes needing to sit with ourselves, be truthful with ourselves, means that we might acknowledge some of the imperfections or the complications that are a part of any life well lived. But in being willing to acknowledge it, we also end up seeing that along the way and in our present circumstances right now, whatever it might be, there is immense love and wisdom playing out and the opportunity for us to not only magnify it, but become more of that very love and wisdom that we seek. Well, thank you so much for watching. What do you love about this week? Let me know in the comments below. I love reading you guys, and to prove it to you, here's some of my most recent favorite comments. Thank you to everybody who likes, who comments, who subscribes, who shares, who thumbs up. All of it means so much. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you. And of course, if you want to know how all this wonderful stuff this week speaks to you in your sign, log on to NadiyaShahSuperstars.com, where you get expanded, exclusive video scopes for each and every sign for as low as just $3 a month. With choose your membership rate. Higher tiers get you things like all access passes to Synchronicity University events, consultations with me, and so much more. All of this in the Superstar space at NadiyaShahSuperstars.com. Links are in the description below. Synchronicity University is in full effect. It is on now for May. May programs We are in the midst of it. I might have accidentally earlier said that programs start this week. That's because I'm recording this video a little bit earlier in the week than I normally do. Oh, they already took place by the time that you are seeing this video. And so that's really exciting. Lots of people signed up. Thank you so much for supporting and seeing value in Synchronicity University as part of your own journeys. I am so very grateful for all of that. Really, you and your enthusiasm for the classes ensures that we are able to continue to offer our world famous, as I call it, choose your tuition rate, really quality astrology education and a chance to learn from some of the most renowned astrologers on the planet for a rate that is accessible to the masses. That is a big part of the mission of Synchronicity University. And every time you sign up for a class, you allow that mission to continue. And for that, I thank you. And so, yes, amazing courses are starting up now or have started up, and you will be moving forward with them. And know that right now you can sign up for individual classes, just $35 each. And so, yes, you can learn more, pick and choose whichever single classes you want to participate in. My own course on relationship astrology, the definitive relationship course, I'm calling it. We just went through how to look at when love might show up. We have yet to look at what you need in love, synastry charts, composite charts, and breakups as well, looking at when that might happen. So we're going to have a lot of fun and continue to have fun with that. ALEJO Lopez, his class is underway as well. He is looking at midpoints. He is looking at harmonics. He is looking at aspects, like all of those aspects that move beyond just the traditional Ptolemaic aspects. And instead, we also look at all those aspects that we consider minor, but actually can be a really big deal in your experience. Lots of students have been asking for these programs, and it is ALEJO who is the absolute perfect person to be teaching all of this. He is a master teacher. He teaches with the Faculty of Astrological Studies, one of the most preeminent astrology schools on the planet. And so you know he is that good. And I know that students are showing a lot of enthusiasm for that as well. Michael Lutin's previous course has now been sent out, right? So you got those digital downloads to his previously taught webinars. I hope that you're absolutely enjoying them. And my live Q&A with him, that bonus that you got for signing up for that, well, that is going to be announced later this month. So be on the lookout for that if you've signed up for that course as well. And the speaker series. Oh my God, let's talk about this amazing speaker series at Synchronicity University. You can sign up for individual classes now. Earlier this week, we had Shelley Stern teaching on the second house in astrology. And you can actually go and get that as an instant download right now if you want at synchronicityuniversity.com. Our big dog astrologer for this speaker series is the one and only Gemini Brett. Big dog superstar astrologer. He is all about embodied astrology. He's going to help you to understand the void of course moon and what that means for you and how it is that you can use it to your advantage. Marcia Farienza is teaching on Chiron in astrology, considering how important Chiron has been as of late, as planets have moved to the sign of Aries in particular. Now, increasingly moving into the sign of Taurus, right? The sun is now in Taurus. Venus is at home in Taurus already. And we are a little bit further into May going to have Mercury move into the sign of Taurus as well. So yeah, we've had these activations of Chiron. So she's going to help us to understand Chiron that much more deeply in astrology. Timon Harwood is going to be looking at the triplicity of the earth signs. He gave this very successful talk at the recent Canadian Astrology Conference. Well, was it recent? It was last year in the fall, in September. So maybe not that recent. I guess it depends on your perception of time. But yeah, he's going to help you to understand earth energy and how it plays out in your chart. And Jesse Innocent is going to help you to understand karmic astrology, how karma plays out in the chart. He is somebody who brings such an open heart and such a wise perspective, as you probably saw in the interview that I did with him. And so that is going to be a very special talk as well. well. So you can see here, incredible programs are underway, including a massively wonderful speaker series. You can sign up for individual classes now at synchronicityuniversity.com. Links are in the description below. And thank you. Thank you so much for this moment with you. Thank you for your trust. I'm so grateful for it. And thank you for staying until the end. I know that it is those superstar fans who really stay right to the end. And really, I appreciate it so much. Thank you. And to those of you who've signed up for the May programs as well at Synchronicity University, thank you so much for that. I'm so grateful for it. And it looks like there's so much enthusiasm. I think we're going to have a lot of fun and continue to have a lot of fun this May at Synchronicity University. Thank you again for watching. It'll be a great week. Enjoy.